Last time I told you how I said yes, how I took the blood money, how I kissed my mother's hands and walked into darkness with my eyes wide open, thinking I was saving her, thinking I was strong. I was not strong. I was weak. And weakness, disguised as strength, is the most dangerous thing in the world. Tonight I will tell you about the first man I killed. His name was Dmitri Volkov. He was 32 years old. He had a wife named Irina and 2 daughters, 7 and 9 years old. I know this because after I shot him, after I watched the light drain from his eyes like water through a cracked cup, I went through his wallet. I looked at the photograph he carried, a family portrait, everyone smiling, everyone alive, everyone who would wake up the next morning and learn that their father, their husband, was never coming home. I kept that photograph for 16 years. I do not know why. Maybe I thought it would make me feel something. Remorse, guilt, shame. It never did. Not then. Only now in my old age, when everyone I loved is in the ground, do I look at that photograph and see what I really was. Not a gangster, not a survivor, just a murderer. A man who destroyed families because he was too much of a coward to find another way. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start where I should. Let me start with the training, with the transformation, with the moment I stopped being Mehmet Yilmaz from Tarlabasi and became something else, something darker. It was April 1966. I had been working for Hakan Demir for 3 months, 3 months of watching shipments, standing guard at meetings, learning the language of violence without speaking it yet. Hakan was patient with me. Too patient, I thought. He would look at me sometimes with those shark eyes, studying me, measuring me, waiting for something. I did not know what he was waiting for, but I would learn. One morning a car picked me up at dawn. Not the usual driver. This one was silent, stone-faced, with scars on his knuckles that told stories I did not want to hear. We drove out of Istanbul into the hills outside Sila, where the land was empty and the sea crashed against rocks like it was trying to break the world apart. We stopped at an old farm, abandoned, or so it looked, but when we walked inside the barn, I saw it was not abandoned at all. It was a training ground. 6 men were already there. Young men like me, hungry men, desperate men, all of us chosen by Hakan for the same reason. We had nothing to lose, or so we thought. The man in charge was called Osman the Bull. I never learned his real last name. Nobody used last names in that place. Osman was 45 years old and built like he was carved from stone. His face had been broken so many times it looked like a map of violence. He had killed his first man at 16. By the time I met him, he had killed 43 more. He did not brag about this. He stated it like someone stating the weather. A fact. Cold. Empty. He looked at us 6 new recruits and he said, "You are here because Mr. Demir believes you have potential." But potential means nothing. Action means everything. By the end of this month, 3 of you will be dead, 2 of you will quit, and 1 of you will become what we need. A soldier, a weapon. A man who does what needs to be done without question, without hesitation, without conscience. I thought he was exaggerating. I thought it was intimidation. But Osman the Bull did not exaggerate. He never said anything he did not mean. The training was brutal, not like military training, worse. Because military training teaches you to kill for a cause, for your country, for something bigger than yourself. This training taught you to kill for money, for orders. For nothing at all except the fact that someone told you to do it. We learned to fight, not boxing, not wrestling, street fighting, dirty fighting, how to break a man's knee with a kick, how to crush his throat with your elbow, how to use a broken bottle, a belt, a brick, anything you could find to kill quickly and efficiently. Osman would pair us up and tell us to hurt each other, really hurt each other. If you held back, he would hurt you worse. I learned quickly not to hold back. We learned to shoot. Pistols, rifles, shotguns. We practiced on targets at first. then on stray dogs that Osman brought in from the streets. I remember the first time he handed me a pistol and pointed at a dog tied to a post 20 meters away. He said, "Shoot it." I hesitated. I had never killed anything before, not even an animal. The dog looked at me with confused eyes, not understanding why it was there, why this was happening. Osman pressed the gun into my hand harder. He said, "If you cannot kill a dog, you cannot kill a man. And if you cannot kill a man, you are useless to Mr. Demir. And if you are useless, you are dangerous, because useless people know too much." I understood the threat. I raised the pistol. My hand was shaking. I pulled the trigger. The dog dropped, just dropped, and I felt something break inside me. Not my conscience, my resistance, the wall between who I was and who I was becoming. Osman nodded. He said, "Good. Do it again tomorrow and the day after until your hand does not shake." By the end of the week, my hand did not shake. We learned other things too, how to interrogate someone, how to make them talk through pain without killing them too quickly, how to dispose of bodies, where to dump them so they would never be found, or if they were found, the message would be clear. We learned the politics of the underworld, who controlled what territory, who could be negotiated with, who had to be eliminated. We learned that loyalty was everything, and betrayal was death. Not quick death, slow death, the kind of death that served as a warning to everyone else. 3 weeks into training, one of the recruits tried to leave. His name was Cenk. He was 19 years old. He came from Ankara. He told Osman he had made a mistake, that this life was not for him, that he wanted to go home. Osman smiled. He said, "Of course, you are free to leave. We are not prisoners here." Cenk looked relieved. He thanked Osman. He started walking toward the road. He made it about 50 meters before Osman shot him in the back. Once, clean, professional. Cenk fell face down in the dirt. Osman turned to the rest of us and said, "There is only one way out of this life. Death. Your death or theirs. Choose wisely." Nobody else tried to leave. Another recruit, a man named Barris, was caught stealing from one of the supply trucks. Not much, just cigarettes and some food. But theft was betrayal, and betrayal was unforgivable. Osman did not kill him. Instead, he broke both of Barris's hands with a hammer, slowly, methodically. While the rest of us watched, he said, "You can still work with broken hands, but you will never steal again, and every time you feel pain, you will remember why." Barris lasted 2 more days before he hanged himself in the barn. Osman cut him down without emotion and said, "Weak men always find a way out. Strong men endure." By the end of the month, there were only 3 of us left. Me, a man named Kerem from Izmir, and a quiet boy named Yasin, who never spoke unless spoken to. Osman looked at us and said, "You 3 have earned the right to bleed for Mr. Demir. Tomorrow you begin real work." The next day, Hakan Demir himself came to the farm. He walked through the barn, inspecting us like a general inspecting troops. He stopped in front of me. He said, "Mehmet, you have done well. Osman tells me you are cold, efficient. That is good, but cold efficiency is not enough. I need to know you can kill. Not a dog, not a target, a man. Can you do that?" I looked into his shark eyes and I said, "Yes, I can do that." He smiled. He said, "Good, because I have a job for you. Tonight, there is a man who needs to die. His name is Dmitri Volkov. He works for the Kozlov Bratva. He has been skimming money from our joint operations. Small amounts, insults really, but insults must be answered. You will find him, you will kill him, and you will make it clean. No witnesses, no evidence, just a body and a message. Can you do this?" I said yes before my brain could catch up to my mouth. Hakan nodded. He handed me a piece of paper with an address, Karakoy, a small apartment building near the fish market. He said, "Dmitri will be home at 10 tonight. He lives alone. His wife and children are in Russia visiting family. It could not be more perfect. This is your test, Mehmet. Pass it and you are one of us. Fail and well. Osman will handle the failure." He left. I stood there holding the paper, feeling the weight of what I had just agreed to. Kerem looked at me. He said, "Your first kill." I remember mine. It gets easier. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. That night I took a ferry across the Bosphorus to Karakoy. The address led me to a narrow street lined with old buildings that leaned against each other like drunks. The kind of neighborhood where people minded their own business, because asking questions was dangerous. I wore dark clothes, a black jacket, a cap pulled low. In my jacket pocket was a pistol, the same Browning high-power Hakan had given me months ago. I had practiced with it hundreds of times. I knew its weight, its trigger pull, its recoil. But knowing a gun and using it to kill are two different things. I waited in a doorway across from Dmitri's building. 10 o'clock came and went. No sign of him. 11 o'clock. Still nothing. I started to think maybe he was not coming. Maybe he knew. Maybe someone had warned him. But at 11:30 a man turned the corner, tall, thin, wearing a cheap suit and carrying a briefcase. He matched the description Hakan had given me. Dmitri Volkov. He walked into the building. I gave him 5 minutes, then followed. The building had no security, no locks on the main door. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, apartment 7. I could hear a television playing inside. Russian voices, a game show or something. I stood outside that door for what felt like an hour, but was probably only seconds. My hand was on the pistol. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break through my chest. I knocked, light, casual, like I was a neighbor borrowing sugar. The television went silent. Footsteps approached. A voice called out in Russian. I did not understand the words, but the tone was clear. "Who is it?" I did not answer. I knocked again. The door opened a crack. Dmitri's face appeared, suspicious, annoyed. He said something in Russian. Then he saw my face and his expression changed. He knew. Somehow he knew. He tried to slam the door, but I was faster. I shoved my shoulder against it, hard. The door flew open. Dmitri stumbled backward. He opened his mouth to scream. I pulled the pistol and shot him. The sound was not as loud as I expected. A sharp crack, muffled by the walls and the night. Dmitri fell. He did not die immediately. He lay on the floor, clutching his chest, blood spreading across his cheap suit like spilled wine. He looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. He said something in Russian. I did not understand the words, but I understood the meaning. "Please, please do not do this. I have a family. Please." I should have felt something. Horror, regret, humanity, but I felt nothing. Just a cold, empty space where my conscience used to be. I raised the pistol again and shot him in the head. The light left his eyes, just like that. One moment a living man, the next, meat. I stood there staring at the body. My first kill, my baptism in blood, and all I could think was, that was easy. Easier than I thought. Easier than shooting the dogs, because the dogs looked at me with trust. Dmitri looked at me with hate, and hate is easier to kill than trust. I searched the apartment quickly. I needed to make sure there were no witnesses, no complications. In the bedroom, I found his wallet on a dresser. I do not know why I opened it. Curiosity, maybe, or some stupid need to know who I had just killed. Inside was money, which I left, and a photograph, a family portrait. Dmitri, a pretty woman with dark hair, 2 little girls with bright smiles, everyone happy, everyone alive. I took the photograph. I do not know why, maybe as proof, maybe as a reminder. I put it in my jacket pocket next to the warm gun, and I left. I walked down the stairs calmly, out of the building, into the night. Nobody saw me, nobody stopped me. The ferry back to the European side was nearly empty. I sat on the deck, watching the lights of Istanbul shimmer on the water, and I realized something terrifying. I did not feel bad about what I had done. I felt powerful. The next morning I met Håkan at his office. I walked in expecting questions, expecting tests, but he just looked at me and nodded. He said, "It is done." Osmond confirmed the body was found. Clean work, no witnesses, no problems. You have passed your test, Mehmet. You are one of us now. He handed me an envelope. I opened it. 10,000 lira. More money than I had ever seen. He said, "Your first payment as a full member of my organization. There will be many more. Dmitri was just the beginning. You have a gift, Mehmet. A coldness. That is rare. Most men break after their first kill. They drink, they cry, they run. But you walked out like you had just finished a day's work. That tells me you are special. That tells me you will go far in this life." I should have been horrified by his words, but I was proud. I was proud that I had not broken, proud that I was strong. I did not understand yet that strength and emptiness are not the same thing, that what he called a gift was really just the death of my soul. I took the money home. My mother was awake, sitting by the window, wrapped in a shawl I had bought her with Håkan's money. She looked healthier. The medicine was working. Her cough was less severe. When she saw me, she smiled. She said, "You look tired, my son. Are you working too hard?" I lied. I said, "Yes, Anna. The work is demanding, but it pays well. Look, I brought more money. We can move to a better apartment soon. Somewhere with heat, somewhere you can be comfortable." She took the money and looked at it like it was cursed. She said, "Where does this money come from, Mehmet? What kind of work pays a young man so much?" I lied again. I said, "Security work, Anna. I am protecting important people, important shipments. It is dangerous, but it is honest." She stared at me for a long time. Then she said something I will never forget. She said, "I am your mother, Mehmet. I carried you for 9 months. I know your face better than my own, and I can see it. I can see the darkness in your eyes. You are lying to me, and worse, you are lying to yourself. Whatever you are doing, it is not honest. It is not right, and one day it will destroy you. It will destroy all of us." I wanted to argue, I wanted to defend myself, but I could not, because she was right. So I just kissed her forehead and said, "Trust me, Anna, everything will be fine." That was the second lie that week, and like all lies, it would come back to haunt me. Over the next 6 months, I killed 4 more men, each one easier than the last, each one pushing me further from who I used to be. I became Håkan's go-to enforcer, the man he called when someone needed to disappear, the man who did not ask questions, who did not hesitate, who did not feel. I moved my mother to a better apartment, not in Nisantasi where the rich people lived, but in Sicily, a respectable middle-class neighborhood. I bought her new clothes, real medicine from real doctors. She gained weight, her color improved, she stopped coughing blood, and I told myself I was doing the right thing. I was saving her. I was being a good son. But she never smiled the way she used to. She would look at me sometimes with such sadness in her eyes, like she was mourning someone who was still alive. Me. She was mourning me. In September of that year, I met Ace. Beautiful Ace, the woman who would become my wife, the woman I would love more than anything, the woman whose death would break me completely. She worked in a bakery in Beyoğlu. I went there one morning to buy bread after a long night of work that had left blood under my fingernails that I scrubbed for 20 minutes to remove. I walked into that bakery smelling of soap and violence, and there she was, 22 years old, dark hair pulled back, eyes like honey, a smile that made the whole room brighter. She handed me the bread and our fingers touched, just for a second, but that second changed everything. She said, "You look tired. Long night?" I said, "Yes." She said, "What do you do?" I lied. I said, "Import-export business, long hours." She smiled. She said, "That sounds interesting." We talked for 10 minutes, just small talk, nothing important. But when I left, I could not stop thinking about her smile, about the way she made me feel almost human again. I went back the next day, and the day after that. Each time we talked a little longer. Each time I fell a little harder. After 2 weeks, I asked her to have coffee with me. She said yes. We sat in a small cafe overlooking the Golden Horn and talked for 3 hours. She told me about her life. She came from a small town near Bursa. Her father was a teacher, her mother was dead. She had come to Istanbul to find work, to build a life. She was saving money to open her own bakery someday. Her dream was simple, honest, pure. I told her nothing real about myself. I built a character, a fiction. I said I worked in shipping, that I traveled sometimes for business, that I came from a poor family but had worked my way up. All of it was true in a sense, but all of it was also a lie. She believed me because she wanted to, because when you are young and in love, you see what you want to see, not what is really there. We courted for 3 months. I fell in love with her the way a drowning man falls in love with air, desperately, completely. She was everything I was not, kind, gentle, good. When I was with her, I could almost forget what I was, almost believe I was the man I pretended to be. In December, I asked her to marry me. We were walking along the Bosphorus at sunset. The water was gold and red. The city was beautiful in that light. Everything looked clean, pure. She said yes without hesitation. She said, "I love you, Mehmet. I want to build a life with you. I want to have children. I want to grow old together." I held her and I promised her all of those things. I promised her a future. I promised her safety. I promised her love, and I meant every word. But I did not tell her that the man she was marrying was a killer, that the money I used to buy her ring came from blood, that the future I promised was built on a foundation of lies and corpses. We married in January 1967, small ceremony, just her sister, my mother, Kemal, and a few others. Hakan sent a gift, a large envelope of cash, and a note that said, "Congratulations on your marriage. May your family grow strong." I did not show Ace the note. I told her it was a bonus from work. My mother attended the wedding, but she did not smile. She hugged Ace and whispered something in her ear. I asked Ace later what my mother had said. She told me. My mother had said, "Take care of my son. He is in danger, not from others, from himself. Protect him, because I cannot anymore." Ace laughed it off. She said, "Your mother worries too much. You are not in danger. You are just working hard." I nodded. I said nothing, because what could I say? That my mother was right? That I was in danger? That everyone around me was in danger? I said nothing, and I let Ace believe the lie. 3 months after we married, Ace told me she was pregnant. I was going to be a father. When she told me, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. I held her and I cried. I actually cried. She thought I was crying from happiness, and I was. But I was also crying from fear, because I knew that bringing a child into my life was bringing a child into danger, but I could not tell her that. So I smiled, and I said, "This is the best news. We are going to be a family." My son was born in November 1967. We named him Emre. Beautiful Emre. 8 pounds, healthy, perfect. I held him in the hospital and I made a promise. I promised him silently that I would protect him, that I would keep him safe, that I would give him a better life than I had. That was the 3rd promise I would break. Around the same time, my younger brother Yusuf came to Istanbul. He was 20 years old, restless, ambitious. He had heard about my success, about my money, about my position with Hakan Demir. He wanted in. He said, "Brother, I am wasting my life in the village. I want what you have. Respect, power, money. Take me to your boss. Give me a chance." I said no. I said, "This life is not for you. Go back home. Find honest work." But he would not listen. He kept pushing, and finally, stupidly, selfishly, I gave in. I introduced him to Hakan. Hakan liked him. Yusuf was hungry, fearless, reckless, all the qualities Hakan valued. Within a month, Yusuf was working for the organization. Within 3 months, he had killed his first man. I had brought my brother into hell, and I told myself I was helping him, giving him opportunity. I was so good at lying to myself by then, so practiced, I could justify anything. By the end of 1967, I had everything I thought I wanted. Money, respect, a wife, a son. My family was comfortable. My mother had the best doctors. My brother had work. I was successful. I was powerful. I was living the dream I had imagined sitting in that tea house in Karakoy, starving and desperate. But dreams built on blood never last. They rot from the inside. And soon, very soon, everything I had built would start to crumble. The Kozlov Bratva would come for revenge. My sister would die. My brother would die. My wife would die. My son would die. My mother would die. And I would be left standing in the ruins, wondering how I got there. But I did not know that yet, not in 1967. In 1967, I thought I had won. I thought I had beaten poverty, beaten fate, beaten death. I was 27 years old, and I believed I was untouchable. I was wrong. That is where I will end tonight, with false hope, with the calm before the storm, with the moment right before everything fell apart. Because you need to understand something. You need to understand that I did not become a monster overnight. It happened slowly, one choice at a time, one compromise at a time, one lie at a time, until the man I used to be was just a memory, a ghost, and the monster was all that was left. Next time I will tell you about my sister Elif, beautiful, innocent Elif, how she died, how the Kozlov Bratva took her from me, how I killed 14 men in one night seeking revenge, how blood became the only language I spoke, how the war began that would not end until everyone was dead. Until then, remember this: when you make a deal with the devil, he always lets you think you are winning, right up until the moment he collects. And when he collects, he takes everything. Everything. The photograph of Dmitri Volkov and his family, I still have it, even now, even after all these years. I look at it sometimes and I try to remember what it felt like to feel nothing. Because now, in my old age, I feel everything, every kill, every betrayal, every death. They all live in me like ghosts. Dmitri, Cenk, Baris, all the others whose names I have forgotten, but whose faces I remember. They are with me always, in the dark, in the quiet, in the moments before sleep. They are my companions now, my punishment, my curse. This is what it means to be a monster. Not that you do terrible things, but that you do terrible things and then you have to live with them forever. Until death finally comes and maybe you find peace, or maybe not. Maybe hell is real. Maybe I will see them all again. All the people I killed, all the families I destroyed, and they will ask me why, and I will have no answer. Just silence, just shame, just the truth that I was weak and I chose wrong and everyone paid the price. That is my story, that is my confession, and there is more to come, so much more, blood and death and loss, until there is nothing left but an old man in a chair, telling his sins to strangers, hoping someone will learn from them, hoping someone will make a different choice, a better choice, the choice I should have made but did not.